Where are you from?
I am in California on the Central Coast. Atascadero is the name of this little town. It is about 3 or 4 hours south of the Bay Area and 3 or 4 hours north of Los Angeles. So true Central Coast,
Okay, yeah.
right in the
Um,
middle.
my husband was born over there and his brother lived over there and um I've been out there once, but anyway, I you feel exactly how I feel about holidays, but I feel that it was probably an easier. Have you always been over in California?
Um, I mean, not I was born and raised here, and then I was gone for about 20 years and came back.
Okay.
So,
Where'd you go while you were gone?
oh gosh, I was in Central America. I was in Wyoming. I was in Colorado for 15 of the 20 years. So did a lot of traveling. I was in Thailand for 6 months. I was in a lot of places, but mostly Colorado.
What was the reasoning?
The reasoning
Mm-hmm.
to be, well, I think, I graduated
Wanderlust.
from university and then just, was traveling and discovering places, and then I landed in Colorado and met my husband and now ex-husband, father of my child. And so, yeah.
Okay. I'm always fascinated by people's ability to go abroad of any
Mm.
sort. I was always just counting down the days until I turned 18 and could leave. And I didn't know where I was going and I didn't care where I was going, but I was going. And then I messed up and met my husband when we were 16. And
Oh,
he was
wow.
like, I'm absolutely not going anywhere because he grew up traveling and he was just sick of it
Wow.
at that point. So it took me years to get him to drive 45 minutes to the next town over.
Really?
Yeah. And so,
I always think it's interesting. Some people grow up in that, where their parents are moving them around a bunch, and then they always feel like they can't be still because that's their rhythm that they're used to. And then
mhm,
there's other people who reject it, just like you're saying. And I see that in, every kind of imaginable childhood wound. It's like you either embrace it and it becomes your sort of rhythm that you're comfortable with,
mhm.
or completely reject it and do a, 180.
Yeah, we don't even understand that we're embracing it either, do we? Like a lot of people
No.
will openly speak about how much they hated how their childhood turned out while simultaneously doing the exact same thing to their own children.
Reenacting it. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
interesting.
Um, yeah, so it's been like a theme for years and years where every year he's like, "Well, where do you want to go on vacation this year?" And I always just automatically throw out like Europe, Italy, the Caribbean. He's like, okay, realistically,
Do you just
realistic.
keep nudging it every year a little bit further?
Well, finally, we're in a because again, we live in a small town in Alabama, so and historically, you only were familiar with the world was a lot smaller
Mhm.
15 years ago. You only knew what you were encountering on a day-to-day basis. And most people say in small town Alabama, we're not encountering anyone who went abroad. That was just not a normal thing. And on top of that, it's oftentimes seen very dangerous to go abroad, which is funny
Mhm.
because now we have the connection to the outside world and we find that most other countries think that we're the dangerous ones and they're afraid to come here. But we have um we have grown to where we have many friends who travel abroad just for fun. Like I have a friend who I play mahjong with who was in Japan last week. And then there's a lady that I play pickleball with who's in Hong Kong right now. So
Yeah.
as other people, and then I just left lunch with my friend who's from Bulgaria,
Oh,
and
wow.
she was talking about they went to Europe this past summer to visit her mom, and they went through all of these countries while they were doing that. And she hopes that we'll be able to travel over there soon to do other things. So like it's becoming more and more not as crazy
Right.
to want to go abroad and do things. But I imagine that being able to experience these other cultures and how they do their traditions are different than everybody else's traditions. Everybody's traditions are
Mhm.
different, but we don't realize how different
Yeah.
people's traditions are if we've never been outside of our own little town, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It opens your mind to the idea that there are other ways of doing life and being human.
Sure. And
Yeah.
we need those. It, segueing into the celebrations and the cultural traditions of holidays, we need those collective community collaborations of togetherness and celebration. I think that's a big problem that our culture has right now is that everybody feels lonely, everybody feels disconnected. We don't feel like we're a part of the community. We don't feel like we're a part of anything bigger than ourselves. Most of us, I feel, are, I don't want to say most, a lot of us, a lot of our mental health problems stem from isolation and not feeling part of even a nuclear family, much less a bigger family unit, much less the community. It just stems out from there. And
Right.
a lot of us have been displaced from, that it's more TV gave us a really messed up idea of what normalcy is. So, we always saw the two parents in the single household family unit who just had a hunky-dory little family. Like let's see, what is an example on TV? I don't know, Boy Meets World. Or um I didn't watch a whole lot of TV. I don't know. The
I
Brady
can't help
Bunch.
you there either.
And so we became most of us became very like resentful that we didn't have a childhood that resembled that. But the truth of
Right.
the matter
The
is
sitcom.
that most people's childhoods are not like that. Most people's childhoods do come from like broken families. And
Hold on. Hold that thought.
sure.
Puppy has returned.
All right, let me pause it for us.
Okay. This is Pedro.
Aw,
He snuck out just as I was just closing the door.
what kind of dog is he?
He is, I just had his DNA done. He's 46% Chihuahua. He's got 26% small poodle. He's got 8% Pomeranian, and the rest of him is, quote, super mutt.
Super mutt.
Super
Love it.
mutt. Super mutt.
Sounds like a very American dog.
Yeah, be good. Okay.
Um,
So, we were talking about families and this false perception of what's normal or not based on the media and programming and television and yeah,
yeah, and we've morphed all of our holidays that used to bring the entire community together, and now just superficial and consumerism.
right. Yeah. So, and something that you mentioned is this idea of the collective coming together and celebrating together. Right. And that's really why ritual and holidays are so powerful because we're all collectively in some kind of agreement. Even now, with, it's a different agreement than it was eons ago. And these traditions have changed and morphed over time and throughout history. And often they've been intentionally shaped in order to influence and mold the behavior of the collective. But but it is a moment when, we're all directing our attention in the same way. We're engaging in similar behaviors. And if you believe that human consciousness is co-creative, as I do, then that in and of itself is massively powerful. But then the other thing about it is that we are teaching our children what it is that we hold most dear, what is most sacred to us as a society. And so, we're saying, kids, you're out of school, mom and dad are off of work, everybody's doing the same thing. Pay attention. This must be really important. And right now, what we're teaching our children is just what you said, consumerism, right? Shopping, sugar, alcohol, consumerism, materialism. These are the things that we worship as a culture. This is what's most important. So much so that we're ritualizing it.
Hmm.
And that's what we're passing on to the future generations. So, yeah.
Yeah, and trying to go against that grain is really hard if you have any kind of people that you're established with. If we do have some sort of family units that we're working with in collaboration with these celebrations, on these celebrations, I've been pushing back against them most of my life because I just felt like they were so fake. I
Hmm.
didn't I didn't feel connected to any of it. They're like Christmas magic, and I'm like, I'm not seeing anything that's magical. I am I'm seeing a lot of obligation, a lot of stress, a lot of yelling, fighting. I don't understand what we're actually trying to do here. And it feels yucky to me, so like there was never any. The first time I was introduced to holiday celebrations that actually felt like what I felt they should be was when I was 16, I worked at a convenience store, and it was owned and run by an Indian couple. And they took us, I don't know what celebration it was. I don't know what holiday it was. They were like, "Hey, do you want to come to this celebration of things? It's like a one big party." Okay, sure. So we went to their apartment, and it was me and my friend who also worked there with me. So they took us both, and they dressed us all up in these beautiful Indian dresses and makeup and hair. And then we went to this enormous warehouse where that was just packed with other Indian people, and we ate tons of food and we danced all night long. We left at like 2 a.m. and the party was still going strong. Like there was children like starting to fall asleep in the chairs and whatnot and just on the floor, but everybody was just, and we were, there's something magical, spiritual, um, just powerful about a lot of people getting together and dancing the same dance in a circle, together. And people feel it at concerts. You go to a concert and you're jumping up and down or dancing or singing with 1,000 other people is otherworldly.
Yeah.
And I'm jealous.
Yeah.
I'm jealous that we
It's
don't
our
have
human
that.
consciousness all focused in the same place at the same time, right?
Hmm.
Yeah. I had an experience where I don't know if you're familiar with Michael Franti,
Mm-mm.
but he's a wonderful human being and a musician, and I went to a concert of his, and I was feeling like I was just coming down with a flu that my family had gone through the week prior. And I was like, oh no, like we got to the venue and then I started to feel it creeping into my bones, that feeling where it's coming on and it's trying to get you. And I thought, all right, well, I'm just gonna absorb all this beautiful human energy that's in the field, all this love. And Michael Franti happens to be exceptional at opening everybody's hearts and really raising the vibe of an entire, massive audience, and it's just it's his special talent. And so I just the whole concert, I just sort of danced, but gently with my palms open. I was really more just closing my eyes and tuning into the energy of the field. And I never got sick, as did the rest of my family, in the preceding week. So that's, speaks to what you're talking about. There's something going on there when a bunch of humans come together and we all put our energy in the same place and we lift our energy in that collective community, tribe, it's the opposite of the epidemic of loneliness that we started the conversation with. Yeah. We need each other, right? We are social beings. We're not meant to live in isolation. I think I've read that, I'm pretty sure I've read that loneliness is actually, more indicative of being a precursor to death or illness or
Hmm.
what have you than smoking or alcohol abuse or any of these other things that we, um, you know, tend to think of as so damaging. And they are, but loneliness is worse.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
And we don't think
Yeah.
about it. And, a lot of us have grown up with maybe we had our physical needs met, but we didn't have our mental, emotional
Yeah.
needs met
Yeah.
because, I mean, you have food and shelter and clothing. What more do you want, right? Stop
Right.
whining.
Right.
But you actually do need love and connection and hugs and,
Right.
feel seen and heard. But we're made to believe as children that needing those things means that we're needy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then it
Yeah.
makes it hard for us to reach out and find them later in life because, oh, we don't want to be needy. We don't want to be clingy.
Right. 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 There's all kinds of overlays, that we place on ourselves and yeah. Yeah. So, the loss of meaning in our rituals, the loss of community, the loss of, um, the things that I personally feel are sacred and holy is really what my kind of current mission is all about, is returning the holy to our holidays, the sacred to our solstice. It's all become this superficial commercial, just like you're saying. You've got these material things, what's your problem? But really as humans we do need something much deeper, and we need connection with others and ourselves and what I call God, but you might call that source or spirit or the mystery, whatever, however you name that, something greater. So that is, that's what I've been researching and talking about and sharing with my Oracle deck for the past, 5 or 6 years.
What
How we
was
can
your
shift.
introduction?
What's that?
What was your introduction to anything like this?
To anything like this? Oh gosh. I mean, I
Oh,
would say, you know, it, it's been a lifelong, slow journey, but the particular practice that I teach, that I share in my 13 Sacred Nights Oracle deck, I learned that the year my daughter was born. And she's now 17, so I've been doing this practice for 17 years. And I had been exposed to the Waldorf community and this idea that children love ritual and really thrive with ritual in their lives and on a daily basis and on a cyclical basis. That there can be seasonal rituals, there can be daily rituals, there might be monthly rituals with the cycles of the moon. But this idea that that rhythm or that pulse is very nourishing for children. And so I was really looking for ways to bring more of that into our family life. And I was introduced to this practice, totally fell in love with it. It is a practice that is specific to the winter solstice season. So it's aligning with the darkness and the stillness and the quiet when we're all out doing the consumerism thing, shopping compulsively, overindulging in sugar and alcohol, jam packing our calendars, flooding our lawns with LED light displays. It's just this full on rejection of the darkness of midwinter, the true energy of the winter solstice season. And it's delightful, it's sweet. You could make it deep and profound, or you could make it, just sort of fun and light. You can make it your own. It's just enough structure so that just about anybody could take it and enjoy it, but also there's enough openness that again you can personalize it, make it work for your family or yourself as an individual. I do like to also remind people that you don't have to throw the baby out with the bathwater. If there is something in your current traditions that does feel good to you and is nourishing, this isn't an either or situation, but it is a practice that can help bring back some of that meaning. And it's interesting because we started out talking so much about community and tribe and village. And for me, this was for so many years much more of a introspective, solitary practice. And yet, when I started sharing it with the world, these little sacred nights pods started popping up all over the place, and people would contact me and say, "Hey, do you mind if I get a group together?" Or just tell me that they'd gotten a group together. And it was such a beautiful thing because I hadn't really occurred to me to do it in a group setting. And then that's spontaneously what happened. And I love it. I love that people are sharing the practice in groups of friends and getting together throughout the year to go over we'll talk about how to do the practice so that all of this makes more sense. But they'll get together once a month to go over their card draws for that, for the year, and it's just sweet. It's just another way of connecting with other humans that is a little more meaningful, brings a little more depth to the connection and the conversation. So,
So, I grew up in Church of Christ, so very, very Christian. Uh, Not to say that I ever connected with that religion at all. I, again, was very confused at, what was being said versus what was being practiced. And and that kind of, it feeds into the holidays because most of the holidays that we collectively celebrate are considered quote unquote Christian holidays, even though, if you know the historical context, that's not where they started
right.
out. And when I was trying to figure all of this out, I backtracked it and learned the historical parts and discovered the wheel of the year. And that made much more sense to me as someone looking for that deeper sense of connection and purpose because, oh, it's Jesus's birthday didn't really sit well with me for a lot of reasons because, for one, okay, okay. And for two, if you apparently it was actually in like July or something. Do we even know what the truth is? But I didn't understand how that was supposed to connect to anything and why. So if you get into the wheel of the year, it connects with the earth and the seasons. And it's like, oh,
Right.
okay, so this makes more sense to me. Everything's cyclical. Everything's connected, and how we celebrate the solstice or the equinox, in regards to what's going on with nature, be it the darkest day of the year or the brightest day of the year. Those connotations that go with that make sense, because we all, I talk so much about consistency because I am, I have people who talk about consistency to me for years and years and years and years. They keep coming to me about consistency, and our idea is always so disheveled about consistency because we think that consistency means doing the same thing, like having a routine, having a schedule, and then executing that routine or schedule every single day for the rest of our lives or something. I'm not sure because it doesn't make sense. It's not something that we can actually maintain, even under the best of circumstances, because you know we may can be consistent for a few months at most, because inevitably you or somebody in your family is going to get sick. Somebody's going to die. Someone's going to start a new job. School gets out. School goes back in. Holidays come about, and now your schedule's all wonky. Like, and even as we go through these, the seasons come and the seasons go. We have spring every single year, but spring is different every single year. It may be really rainy. It may be really dry. It may be cooler. It may be hotter. It may be tornado ridden. It may not be. Like, you just never know what the spring's gonna. So, what exactly is consistency if. So, connecting to nature always made much more sense to me and helped me find a better connection to, if I couldn't connect to the people around me, at least I could connect to that. So I started implementing the Wheel of the Year celebrations in my own household and family because I understood that just because other people did the thing doesn't mean that we have to do the thing, and that we can do something different than what's always been done for us, around us, in the intentions of giving my children something that's more meaningful, more purposeful, more fulfilling, because that's what we're all missing. Besides, most of us have more materialistic things than we need. We have so much more abundance than a lot of other countries in the world, and we don't even realize it. We take it all for granted, and we're still chasing more and more and more, and we don't understand why we still feel anxious and overwhelmed and depressed. And it's because we're missing the connection, the fulfillment, the purpose, our place in life, society, the community, our household. And well, what brings us these things? And we think working more, making more money, gaining more material objects is going to get us these things that we're lacking, that fulfill the hole in our soul, because we all feel like there's a hole there. Not all of us, most of us feel like there's a hole there, and we're just trying to constantly fill it with more objects, more things. We think, oh, I'll be happy, I'll be fulfilled when I complete my college degree. I'll be happy and fulfilled when I get married. I'll be happy and fulfilled when I have X amount in the bank account, when my house is paid for, when this, when that, when everything, yada, yada, whatever. When what we're actually looking for are emotions. And emotions are available to us at any point in time if we can just figure out how to tune our energy to them. And we've made it way more complicated than it has to be because it's really hard to go from one end of the spectrum, which is depression and anxiety and stress and overwhelm, to fulfillment and peace and purpose. We know that there's stepping stones. You can't just go from point A to point B under day-to-day situations and circumstances. And that's why we're chasing the feeling that we get at a concert, you know? And we're chasing that vacation, that Hawaii vacation, or the new car or whatever, because we feel like that's the stepping stone when we're missing the day-to-day itty bitty teeny tiny things in front of us that do help us get to those emotions. Like, no, I don't want to spend 20 minutes listening to my son rattle on about Roblox. But that builds the relationship and the patience of sitting there through that builds the relationship that leads to the fulfillment, that leads to the space. Because you're sitting there like, I don't have time for this. I don't have time for this. I don't care. But you do have time if you make the time. And we think that if we work really hard, we will eventually have the time to sit and listen. But we can choose to have the patience and sit and listen for 10 minutes. So, I mean, like, what's going to happen if we don't give them that 10 minutes? Probably nothing. Probably nothing catastrophic. Oh, I have deadlines. Yeah, well, the deadlines are always going to be there.
Yeah, I mean, I think I would sum up, you know, all of that with one, the idea that the more we tune into nature, the more we align with our own highest human potential. And that tuning into nature assists us in being more present in our life. And when we're more present to each and every passing moment, we actually find more peace and joy and happiness. And when we're always chasing something in the future or in the past, we end up in some form of suffering, right? Self-induced suffering. So that's yeah, that's largely what this practice teaches is how to begin to pay attention to the wheel of the year, which you discovered, right? And so we're planting our dream seeds in the fertile soil of the darkness of midwinter so that they'll sprout in the spring. Our little seedlings of inspiration sprout through the topsoil of the void into the realm of the manifest in the spring. In the summertime, we're living the dream that we planted in the fertile soil of the darkness. And then in the fall, you're harvesting the fruits of your labor. You're sort of taking stock, looking at what you want to throw on the compost pile, what you want to keep for the next cycle before diving back in for, another cycle, another unfolding of the fractal, right? And so the spiral. And that's what the 13 Sacred Nights teaches. It's a little window into these cyclical rhythms, the wheel of the year. it's a beautiful starting point. There's so many other things that you can explore and do, but it's just a simple place for folks to start. Again, you don't have to throw out your current traditions. If there's something that is nourishing to you, you have a wonderful family gathering or whatever it is. It might be just something that you add in on the side. I can say for me personally, over the years, it's just sort of slowly taken center stage in my holiday season. We still do the Christmas tree. We have a beautiful Christmas tree. My daughter loves our ornament collection. A lot of them were passed down from my grandmother. We still go to our family gathering every year, but when the days start to shorten and we realize that the holiday season is coming, we start thinking, oh, what do I want to bring into the new year? What are the things that I want to focus on during my sacred nights? Oh, we got to go get our sacred nights journal, and the excitement is really about the coming opportunity to reset and to dive inward, and less about the rest of the, you know, commercial obligations, as you were talking about. This season that we are sort of sleepwalking through,
Hmm.
that's been prescribed or spoon fed to us, right? And we forget where these traditions actually came from. You were talking about the birth of Jesus. Nobody actually knows when Jesus was born. The most of our holidays began with these rituals from ancient pagan cultures that were tuned in to the rhythm of the seasons, their relationship with the stars and the cosmos. They were living much more closely with nature. And then there was this overlay of the Christian story by the Roman Catholic Church in order to ease conversion and to bring everybody under one umbrella of belief and control, really. And if you look at the early days in the colonies, what we call Christmas and what they called Christmas at the time actually looked quite different. In fact, Christmas was actually outlawed from 1659 to 1681 in Massachusetts. And that's because it looked much more like Saturnalia, which was the ancient Roman festival of misrule and midwinter. So it was this complete societal inversion, this sort of letting the steam out of the kettle. Society wide, it was debauchery and cross-dressing, and slaves were served by slave owners, and a fool was crowned king, and children ruled the household, and there was promiscuity in the streets, and it was more like carnival. It was quite carnivalesque. It was a season of misrule. And those traditions similar to that were happening in the colonies alongside the Puritans, who didn't, they just weren't having that, right? And also not really interested in celebrating the birth of Christ, because that was again this attempt of the Roman Catholic Church to sort of ease conversion by allowing some of those traditions or those seasons to continue, but with this new Christian veneer or Christian story overlaid. And so there was this tension in the colonies in the early days. And what actually happened, where this tradition of Christmas that we now think has always been there and was this eternal, organically trickled down, like hitched a ride on the Mayflower tradition, from the old world, it was actually very consciously dreamt up by a small group of elite New Yorkers in the 1800s in order to replace those more ruckus traditions from the ancient world. And so, most of us know the poem "'Twas the Night Before Christmas, and all through the house not a creature was stirring, not even a mouse," by Clement Clarke Moore. That was a attempt to, again, like curate or create a new tradition that would shift the behavior of the collective of the working classes. And it was a very conscious effort. And so there were a handful of individuals. Clement Clarke Moore, Thomas Nast was a cartoonist. He really contributed to the imagery of Santa Claus. There was John Pintard was a historian, and he was the one who kind of kicked off the movement. But there was this very small handful of elite New Yorkers who literally dreamt up our tradition of Christmas, in order to domesticate the holiday, to bring it inside the walls of the parlor. The gift exchange would no longer be between the classes, but it would be, from children to parents. They wanted to create this holiday that was much more domesticated, Victorian values, and they succeeded. And so, so most of us, again, we think that these traditions just sort of organically trickled down into the colonies, and that's not at all what happened. They were very intentionally curated. It was like a rebranding of Christmas. And again, Christmas was outlawed at the time because it did not look anything like what we celebrate as Christmas today. So when you begin to look into the history of these holidays, as it sounds like you have, you realize that they have been rebranded or recreated multiple times over throughout history in order to influence the behavior of the masses. And when you recognize that, it allows you a little bit of space, less attachment. People get so attached to their traditions, like, don't take away my traditions, right? But if you understand that they've actually been spoon-fed to you over the ages, then it gives you a little space to pause and think, well, maybe I don't need to be so attached, and maybe I can think about what will nourish me during this season, what will bring joy and warmth and meaning to my family, and how do I want to celebrate these sacred turning points in the year. And we can do that on an individual level. I think we can do it collectively, but I think there's this opportunity to consciously think about how we want to lean into these moments, how we want to celebrate, as opposed to unconsciously sleepwalking through traditions that have been, overlaid or spoon fed to us. So, and if you are, the practice that I offer, the sacred nights, this is my oracle right here that teaches the practice. But if you are a Christian, it's non-denominational. So if you are a Christian and you wanted to deepen your relationship with Christ during those 13 days, then you could do that. It's just an invitation to be introspective, to align with the darkness and the stillness of the true season of midwinter, rather than just, enacting this commercial frenzy that maybe is not ideal for our psyche and emotional well-being, and spiritual well-being, all of that.
Yeah, people get really attached to their traditions and
They
whatnot.
do.
And it's so frustrating when you're trying to, like, you're not trying to change anybody's traditions or beliefs or anything, but that's how they're perceived. You're just like, hey, here's an idea, and people just freak out.
Right. Yeah. I wrote an article that it was published in Elephant Journal about questioning if the idea of Santa Claus is such a healthy thing to introduce into our children, and I got a lot of blowback for that. But it's, again, Santa Claus was a deity that was invented by these elite New Yorkers because they said, the house of ale will not be vanquished by the house of God. The Puritans had been trying to get rid of Christmas for, a century or so, and they were unable. And so they came up with a new deity, and that deity was Santa Claus. And they did base him on old world figures and characters, that came from other traditions, but they sort of cherry picked stories and qualities, and again, dreamt up this new family friendly, more domesticated, quieter holiday. And what I spoke to in the article was this. Well, I'll just speak for myself personally. I remember when my older brother told me that there was no Santa Claus, and it was not a good feeling. I felt betrayed. I sort of felt like I had been the butt of everybody's joke in my family. Like I was the only one, the youngest sibling. I wasn't in on it. Everybody else knew. Like, were they making fun of me? It was this really uncomfortable feeling
Hmm.
to suddenly be told that this magical thing that I had completely believed in was a lie, was not true. And, when Santa Claus goes down, then there goes the Easter Bunny and the Tooth Fairy and all the things. And I think what happens often is children lose their faith in the unseen world of magic and energy and spirit.
Hmm.
And so, while it's a very innocent thing, I think it can have, negative or detrimental effects on the psyche of a young child. And I had at the time when my daughter was young, we did the Santa Claus thing. I unconsciously went through all the, the motions of Christmas and um, and I remember struggling with like, well, how do I tell her that it's not real? And I had a bunch of very well-meaning mom friends in Waldorf circles, and they said, well, the good thing about Santa Claus and the Easter Bunny and the Tooth Fairy and all these things is it helps your child believe in the world of the unseen and energy and spirit. And I sort of like I wanted to get on board with that, and I sort of
Hmm.
tried, but in the end, it really just didn't sit well with me because the truth is that at some point you're sweeping the rug out from underneath their feet and you're telling
Hmm.
them that it was all fake, it was all a lie. And so I'm not sure that in the end it does, quote, help them believe in those
Hmm.
things. I think there's a rupture that happens that then later they, have to repair on their spiritual journey in their 20s or whenever that shows up, right? But the wonderful thing about this, the wheel of the year and the seasonal living and the practice of the 13 sacred nights is that we're leaning into a magic that is true and real. Our connection with nature and with the mystery, with God, with spirit, with source. And, there are practices that can help us cultivate that relationship as opposed to, you know, I don't know, creating this external cartoon-like figure. And what does Santa Claus represent? Materialism, right? Again. So, or what he's come to represent for a lot of families, right? Maybe there's some ways of angling that story so that it's more about generosity and giving, and of course those themes can be in there as well. But I think it often gets lost in the shopping. So in the piles and piles, the excess, right, of that
Hmm.
season that has become so rampant. So anyway, yeah, there can be a tendency to hang on to these traditions without really thinking about their effect or where their history, where they came from, or what's really happening, or what we're really celebrating, or what we're, um, you know, what what we're really teaching our children. Yeah.
Yeah, because most of us don't think too deeply about anything. So,
No.
and when you really start analyzing it and questioning it, none of it makes sense because, okay, so Santa and the Easter Bunny and the Tooth Fairy. Okay, so yes, those are real. And and of course, I'm pulling from my own roots of Christianity and being in the Bible Belt, which is a whole thing. So we have the Easter Bunny and all of that. And then we have Jesus who could heal people and, heal the blind, turn wine to, or water to wine, and came back from the dead. And then like ghost stories are very prevalent in this area. We're not far from, we're in the Appalachian foothills. So you get all that Appalachian magic. And then America's so weird because we have all of those things. And then we have the Native American connections to spirituality and ancestors. But also, Harry Potter and crystals are the devil's work. So definitely don't meditate or do yoga
Right.
because you're going to go to hell. But and science, if it's not concrete and I can't touch it, feel it, taste it, feel it, it's not like I'm so confused.
So let me tell you a little story about I had to wrestle with my own relationship to to all of that because so I had been teaching at an event in Texas and I was driving all the way back to California, which is like a 22 hours of road time. And I had been selling my Oracle decks at the event and I had extras left over. And I was like, well, I don't want to go home with Oracle decks. So I'm going to stop in Sedona and see if I can, sell some of these to shops there because that seems like an Oracle deck friendly place. And and so I pulled over. I had already been driving for a day and a night, and I was just, feeling gross. So I pulled over into an empty parking lot, And I was just brushing my hair and putting a new shirt on and, getting presentable to go into these shops and offer them my Oracle decks. And this man goes by on his bicycle and he passes goes a bit down the road and then he turns back around and comes back and approaches me. And he said, "Would you believe it if I told you that God told me to come and talk to you or something like that?" And I'm fresh off of this amazing, beautiful event. My heart is open. I have my own personal relationship with Christ and God. And I'm like a really, I don't consider myself religious, but deeply spiritual. So I'm really open. And I said, "Well, yeah, sure, I'd believe that." And so he and I started talking, and he eventually got out his Bible and started, reading me scripture. And then he ended up giving me a copy of, a small copy of the Bible. And I said, "Well, would you accept one of these?" And I went to offer him one of my books. He wanted nothing to do it, and he basically launched into this explanation that I unknowingly was opening demon portals
Uh-huh.
by, sharing these oracle deck. And I sort of tried to just, I was curious, right? Like, where does this perspective come from? Like, well, what if it was just a book and there was no cards attached? Would it then be opening demon portals? If it was just somebody's life experience and thoughts that they were sharing, maybe God inspired, And
Hmm.
anyway, we were just conversing. But the long and short of it was that he eventually rode away and had left me with this sinking feeling that I was perhaps opening demon portals unknowingly. So I got back in my car and I cried, and I had a conversation with God and with Christ, and I said, I don't. It's not my intention to be opening demon portals. Like, if that's what I'm doing, let me know.
Hmm.
Like my intention here is just to spread love. Like, if I'm
Hmm.
not spreading more love, if I'm not positively influencing humanity, like, please tell me. Like, all I want to do is spread more love. That's all I'm trying to do. And I can do other things. I do trauma release work. Like, I can lead, I don't need to share this Oracle deck. Like, I was really open. It was
That
like,
stuff will work too.
I can do other things. I could go do my trauma release work. I can do and so, so I was gonna go get something to eat after that, and I start the car and I drive off, and like, right, 1 minute down the road, this voice text comes through from a man who had been at the event that I was just at, and he and his wife had my Oracle deck from the year prior, and he had been excited to meet me at the event in person, and he leaves me this 2 minute long voice text telling me specifically these words, like, "You bring so much love to everything you do." And this practice of the 13 sacred nights, it just was so beautiful for my wife and I, and it increased our connection and it increased our love. And he kept referring to the love that I was
Hmm.
increasing in the way that I am in my life and what I'm sharing and what I'm teaching and everything else. And it was such a beautiful, it was the most beautiful synchronicity. And I just said, "Okay, I got it. Thank you." Like, I am spreading love. That's not, this is, I got it. I'm in my right lane. But then, as if that wasn't enough, then I go to this cafe, I sit down, and I'm sitting next to this woman, and we just start talking. And then I shared with her the experience that I had just had. And she goes, "Wait a minute." She goes, "Does that guy wear like lots of like elbow pads and knee pads? Like, he kind of looks like a professional cyclist." And I go, "Yeah." She's like, "What's his name?" And I tell her his name, and she goes, "Oh my goodness, he did the exact same thing to me. I was alone, a woman alone in a parking lot, and he approached me and he made it sound all synchronistic that God had told him to come and talk to me, and basically told her how she was, I don't know what, doing life wrong." So it was such a clear experience for me. And the synchronicities were not there, there's just no mistake in the way that it unfolded, and just really illustrated for me the difference between fear and love,
Hmm.
and how you're approaching your relationship with your own relationship with God, and then how you speak about that relationship with other people, and how you project or overlay your beliefs on other people, and whether or not you are sharing from a place of fear or from a place of love. So That's my
Yeah.
little story about that.
And I have so many very similar stories. I had
Yeah.
no idea what I was, because I teach yoga and meditation, and
Yeah.
I have specialized in nervous system regulation. Okay. So pretty much everything I do is based on regulating the nervous system, relaxing the shoulders, checking in with the posture, creating space in the body so that you can create space in the mind because the two are interconnected. Everything I've always thought I was giving out. Like now, I do get a little spiritually inclined on the podcast for sure, because that's where we talk, that's where we
Right.
explore ideas. That's where we go, what do you think about this? What do you define this at? But as far as my classes go, it's all just, long, deep, slow breaths. And I've been very confused. When people started telling me that they couldn't practice yoga because or meditation because they were Christians, I was just very taken aback because I had no idea that yoga and meditation, when I got into it, I didn't know it was considered a spiritual practice. I thought it was, like everybody else, an exercise. It was
Right.
the yoga part is a body exercise, and the meditation is a mental exercise. And then my grandmother told me that that was all fine and dandy, but that I should not be teaching meditation to my children because meditation children do not need to be communing with spirits. Communing with spirits. Like, explain to me exactly how, because I thought at this point in time in my life that meditation was, because the way I got into any of this was that I was trying to heal my own trauma and my own nervous system deregulation. I was so anxious I didn't leave my house hardly at all for years and years and years and years. My grandparents lived about 75 feet to the left of my house, and I would go months at a time without seeing them. I did not walk out of my door. I was just terrified of everybody and everything. So, I was getting into my early 20s at this point, or I was transitioning from my teens into my early 20s. And so I'm in college, and it's kind of time to figure out what you're doing with your life. And luckily we had the internet, so I started researching how to be successful. That's all I knew. That's all I knew what I do. I just needed to know how do you even be successful? And so what I stumbled across was the personal development world and the lowest common denominators of successful people, right? Which is exercise and diet, taking care of your body, reading books. All right, check and check. Working on those now. Meditation across the board. They were all meditating. And I was like, well, okay, well, what's that? What is meditation? And back then, it's different now because I've Googled it every so often for years because it comes up so often. At that point in time, if you Googled what is meditation, the definition you got was the act of meditating.
That's funny.
Wonderful.
I
Okay.
would say, to interject, I would say that meditation is a form of prayer and prayer is a form of meditation.
Okay, yeah, I
To
agree.
yeah.
But my Google activated when I asked it. It's just um but at that point in time, I had to figure it out myself. I
Right.
had to figure out exactly, okay, I'm supposed to be meditating, but I don't know what meditation is. And then
That's
you
so
could
funny.
find guided meditations on YouTube. So I started with those and I was like, okay, so we're breathing. We're focusing on our breath. We're keeping our awareness on our body. All right. We're noticing our thoughts and where they come from and well, what caused those thoughts? And oh, there are belief systems. Well, where do belief systems come from? Oh, it's because that one time in second grade, my mom said this, and I just kind of internalized it. Okay, so is that helpful? No, no, it's not. All right, so what's a better belief? So it all became
Right.
like mindset work.
It's
So
self exploration, right?
yeah, yeah, which apparently is devil work. You shouldn't look too deeply into what you think and why you think and how you are and why you are the way you are, because then you might
Right.
Find something you don't like and find something that doesn't align with your values and your priorities that you thought you had straight, but turns out you don't because your actions and your words don't align with what's
Right.
actually setting in your heart. So if you look too closely at that, you may start to think that something's needs to change, and people don't like change. So anyway, I had no idea. I was floored when people started telling me that it was a spiritual practice. And then because I grew up in church and had just bad experience after bad experience after bad experience with that, there was never any love or
Mm.
connection in my congregations, plural, that I found myself in a small
Yeah.
town in
Right.
Alabama because it's one step above cultish, honestly. And so and this is pre-internet. I didn't know there was anything else as far as spirituality went. So I was spiritually lost. I was spiritually orphaned.
Yeah.
I didn't know. I knew that there was a hole there. So I turned to Harry Potter and
Mm.
Lord of the Rings and the books and media where fantasy novels, and that's where I kind of connected with. I was like, "Oh, magic." And it was I didn't know there were any other options. I didn't know that you could be spiritual and not religious. And
Right.
that's kind of where I landed in my early 20s. I was filling out a form for something or another, and it wanted to know my religious stance or whatever. And, Christianity was on there, Muslim was on there, and it was like spiritual,
Mm.
not religious. And I was like, oh,
Oh, that's a thing?
that's a thing.
Can I be that?
I didn't know. I had also been really like pulled towards the Eastern arts.
Yeah.
So, martial arts, acupuncture, um, meditation, yoga, all of these things that were bridging the gap, the gaping hole that was inside of me. So, but it wasn't until, a few years ago that I started being open-minded at all to what Christianity even had to offer because I had such a
Right.
bad experience
Right.
my entire life with it. And everybody I encountered who were just devout Christians were some of the worst people I knew.
Mm.
And so it really it pushes you away from all of this. But I started, I found some friends who are heavily Christian and talking to them, and oh, they weren't attacking me just for asking a question or, saying that I do meditation or, just existing. Honestly, like
Right.
that's all I ever was doing was existing and trying to figure out my own problems and how to get past them so that I could be a functioning member of society because I wasn't. I couldn't leave my house, because of fear and anxiety and stress and overwhelm. And every time I did, everybody I encountered were just reinforcing this fear, right? And so a couple of years ago, I found these friends, and for the first time in my life, I was interacting with people who were devout Christians, but also able to have a conversation about psychology in
Yeah.
a level-headed, intelligent manner rather
Mm.
than because it's like the more books I read and the more I learned, the more of a wedge it drove in between me and people around me because people just want to be left alone in their little surface level existence.
Questioning is scary. Change is scary. Com recognizing that beliefs that you've relied on your whole life might not be truth with a capital T. That's scary.
Hmm.
That leaves you in the unknown. And most humans, it's the nature, the design of our nervous system. We'd rather stay miserable in
Yeah.
something familiar than step out into the unknown.
Hmm.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that process that you went through is so, so, so common. So many people find themselves, having had a very negative experience with religion. It was weaponized against them in some way, shape, or form.
Hmm.
And so rejecting that and then finding themselves still with this emptiness inside of, wait a minute, I still have this longing for God, but I didn't find it there. So,
Hmm.
so I'm spiritually homeless, right?
Hmm.
And for me, that's where the portal of nature comes in.
Hmm. For me as
Because
well.
it is one of the places where I find God most available is
Hmm.
in nature. And so again, the more we align with nature, the more I think we uncover and discover our own highest human potential and that connection to God. Yeah. So
Yeah. Well, when I started opening my mind to the what Christianity had to offer potentially, I started seeing all of the overlap. For example, and like which, full circle brought all of this whole tangent. I guess I don't know if it's a tangent or not, or just a way too elaborate in depth. I use way too many words when fewer will suffice.
keep
But
going.
uh, meditation being prayer, it is the same thing.
It's the
Uh,
same thing. Yes.
Energy work and Reiki is prayer and extension of healing.
It's laying on of hands, right?
It's all the same
This is
thing.
also within the teachings of Christianity, the laying on of hands. Yeah.
It is. And we pick and choose. And because we have a lot of misconceptions about a lot of things, like we were talking about consistency earlier and our misconception of what that actually means. Uh, Words in and of itself are limiting and
So
fallible.
clumsy. They're
So
so
clumsy.
clumsy. And people get so just angry and defensive and offended
Hmm.
about like I find it what's the word that I'm looking for? Just slight differences in meaning, you
Hmm.
know? And it's so silly. It's like we're all talking about the same thing. Have you ever heard that the story or the analogy of like a bunch of hunters that go into the jungle and one of them sees the trunk of an elephant and another one sees like the foot and the other one sees a tail and the other one, I don't know, sees the belly or something and they all come back and they all go, I know what an elephant is. And they're arguing amongst themselves about what an elephant is because they've only seen a little slice of it, right? And it's a metaphor for the world's spiritual traditions and religions. It's like we're all arguing about the same thing and you all have like, this small glimpse that is through a certain cultural lens and perspective, right? But we're all talking about the same thing.
Yeah.
So,
I
yeah.
love that. I've never heard that analogy, but it is the perfect analogy.
Yeah. Yeah.
The way I like to describe it is even though I'm speaking English and you're speaking English, we probably are speaking two completely different types of English, but we don't even realize that we are. And we
It's
think we
so true.
understand. Like I can say a sentence and you think you understand exactly what I'm saying, and I think you understand exactly what I'm saying, but the thoughts in our heads are completely different, and actually neither
Yes.
of us are getting our point across, and we don't even know. And I think
It's so
that's
true.
usually what
It's
we're
so true.
working
I was
with.
just talking about this with my boyfriend yesterday about how, like, maybe on the other side, where the communication, there's no words, right? And the communication is just this psychic exchange of thoughts. Like, it must be more pure, and there's probably less misunderstandings because you're just having this direct connection, with the consciousness of another being or human, or, yeah.
Yeah, but I feel like we could do a lot more of that now if we instead of trying to rely so heavily on words, we focused on the energy of one another. And just the word energy gets people all wiggly and uncomfortable. And it's like, well, can you not feel the energy in the room shift when two people have a spat?
Right.
Can you not feel the energy in the room when everybody's getting along and everything's nice? Like it gets tense, it gets loose, it gets spacious, it gets tight. Like
Right.
under the more you understand about uh all of these little intricate workings on a day-to-day basis, the less you really, it's so funny because the more I've learned and the more I believe I've learned anyway, what actually do I know anything about anything? But the less I want to talk about it because,
Hmm.
if you truly understand it, it's unspoken. And I'm pretty
Right.
sure that there's some words that say that in the Bible, like
Mm.
the universal language is love, and love is a feeling, it's an emotion, it's something that you can vibe
I
with.
would say it's the underlying fabric of the universe, which is
Yeah.
also synonymous with God
Yes.
or
Yes.
God consciousness or universal consciousness. Yeah.
Uh-huh. And we're,
Yeah.
and we're over here like we feel like it's necessary to reiterate every time we say God or the universe. We have to be like, God or the
Disclaimer, by the
universe
way,
or
there's other
whatever.
names for
Or
this. Yeah.
yes, there's a thousand
I,
different words for, how many languages are in the world? Okay, it's thousands. Thousands of languages exist on this planet. That means that we have thousands of words for chair, desk, dog. It's the same thing. And I think we're creating a new language always anyway, because language
Yep.
is fluid.
Language
It's
changes.
always,
Yep.
it's malleable. It's always shifting, always changing. The
We
vernacular
don't speak in
of,
Old English like Shakespeare any longer.
right. And you go to Louisiana, speaks a completely different English language than Canada, than Washington State, then New York, Boston, like everywhere you go, it's Australia, Great Britain. Those are all English, but they're different variations. And it just depends, person to person,
Yeah.
shifting
Yeah.
little by little.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And I know all of this, and I know that people who get weird and antsy when we start talking about these things just means that, they're uneducated on those types of things, and they're the dogma that they've grown up in has them captured. And so I
Yes.
meet them with kindness, I meet them with love and compassion, but I also do leave very frustrated, and I often cry
Mhm.
because trying to trying to speak love and be the best person that you can be, and just do your best, the best you can, where you can, how you can, and then have people tell you that you're opening demon
Demon
portals.
portals, right? So I think what
What?
what what we do is to the best of our ability, we speak to our audience, right? I speak very differently about these concepts with my brother, who is not a spiritual person at all, than I do say with you or somebody else who runs a spiritual podcast or is a yoga teacher or a Reiki master or whatever it is, right? And so you can shift your language to speak to your audience as best you can. And then if there still isn't understanding, it's interesting. I just recently had a conversation with a man who is a Toltec shaman.
Ooh.
And yes, and the Toltecs, he was talking about how they really believed that we need to make our peace with the world and the way that it is. And even the darkness, and
Hmm.
it's not that you don't have compassion or that you don't do your best to relieve suffering or whatever it is, but at the same time there's this level of surrender, right,
Hmm.
where you just are allowing the world or other people to be as it slash they are. And he had one sentence that just really sort of hit at a new level and went in a little deeper than previously. Because it's not that I'm unfamiliar with these concepts. I love Adyashanti is one of my favorite teachers. He's a Zen teacher, and he talks about how we have this tendency to always be arguing with life. In one way or another, we are trying to wrangle life. We want it to look different. We want somebody else to act different. It's like you were talking about previously. I'll be happy when this thing happens, but right now it's not okay and it needs to be different. So we're in ways that are obvious and in ways that are much more subtle. We're constantly bickering with life about how it's not the way that we want it to be.
Hmm.
But what this man said to me was, consider. I think most of us often our more challenging relationships are often within the family,
Sure.
right? And
Absolutely.
so,
Can't get rid of
and
them.
so
Can't
he
just walk away
said,
from them.
consider the possibility that they are playing their roles more perfectly than you're playing yours. And somehow that gave me such permission on a level that I was already trying to do, but somehow hadn't reached that level of surrender to really allow them to just be who they are
Hmm.
and have, zero desire left, no like just even slight little inkling to want to change them, or even if it's from a place of love. Like, I think they'll be happier if you're still projecting what you think is best for that human, and only they and their soul know what is best for them.
Hmm.
Right. And so consider the possibility that they are playing their roles more perfectly than you're playing yours. And that just sort of hit me in a new way.
And it's so hard. It's so hard because even when you come to that point, it feels like so just because you come to that realization doesn't mean that you have to engage, you know? Because a lot of people think that that's what that means. It means I accept them for who they are, so I just have to put up with and deal with them. And like, not necessarily. Like, you can let them go and just let them live.
You can still
And
have boundaries. Yeah, healthy
yeah,
boundaries are okay.
yeah. And when it comes up that you have to interact with them, you can be cordial and, say less is
Right.
usually the
Yeah, you don't have
way
to
to go.
say it all.
You
Yes.
don't. And you can just get up and walk away. You can
Yeah.
smile and nod and then excuse yourself outside or,
Yeah.
whatever
Another
you
thing
can
that
avoid.
Adyashanti says is that true freedom is not I get to do or be whoever I want, but it's that everyone and everything gets to be whoever they want to be and however it wants to be, right? Because if you're getting to be whoever you want and you're getting to do your thing, but you're still not allowing, say your mom or your sister or your cousin or whatever, or the world, to be the way that it is or they are, you're still not free internally.
Mm-hmm.
That's not true freedom, right? So true freedom is not just I get to be me, it's everybody gets to be themselves. And that's
Mm-hmm.
true freedom. Yeah.
Yeah, and learning how to not let it affect you. Because if it's affecting you, then it's not freedom, is what you mean. Like if you every time you show up around that person, you just leave bent out of shape and pissed
Right.
off and and it just ruins the rest of your day, then you're still being controlled by that person and their
Right.
actions. You're not
Yeah.
allowing them to be who they are.
Right. Yeah.
It's weird for people to navigate. It's a different way of living. It's a
Listen,
different.
I'm still navigating it.
Oh,
This is
same.
lifelong exploration and practice, right?
And it always is for every single one of us. There is no destination. There is
Right.
no when I get to XYZ. It's all going to always be shifting. The only constant is change.
That's
So the
right.
only thing we can ever control is ourselves in this moment.
Amen.
Yeah. All right. Well, I don't have anywhere else to go if you don't.
I could share a little bit about how this winter solstice practice works if people wanted to check it out or try
Okay.
it. And they
Sure.
don't even necessarily need my Oracle deck. I can share a little bit about how it works.
We love
Um,
practices.
yeah, so to go back to the winter solstice, right? December 21st in the northern hemisphere or June 21st in the southern hemisphere,
Weird.
is essentially the first day of the practice. So the longest, darkest night of the year. We are in the void. We're in the field of infinite possibility, the womb of winter, the peak of darkness, the peak of yin energy. If you think of the yin yang symbol, this is where the black bulges, right? It's the most dark, the most black that you're going to see on that little symbol. So starts on the 21st. You have 3 days to prepare and think about what you want to bring into your practice and also into the new turning of the wheel, the whole cycle of seasons, winter, spring, summer, fall, or the new year on the horizon. And so that might look like, okay, I want to do more meditation or prayer. So I need, a new a meditation cushion, or I want to do more cooking, so I'm going to gather some recipes and I need to go buy myself a new frying pan, or I want to do more exercise, so I'm going to go get some weights, or whatever it is that you're wanting to bring into the new year, you kind of gather those things during that 3-day window. And then the first sacred night actually falls at sundown on December 24th and carries through to sundown on December 25th. And that first 24-hour period is like a blueprint for the entire coming cycle, a foreshadowing, an imprint, a stamp, right? An energetic and physical stamp of the new cycle to come. And so you're doing two things. You are receiving guidance and cues and hints from God, source, spirit, the universe, right? And that can look like journaling, just the details of your day, everything that happens internally and externally, the mundane stuff. I went to the grocery store, I had this conversation, this song came on the radio, I had this thought process internally, I talked to my mom, whatever. You journal all the things that are happening. And then you're also drawing an oracle card for each of the 13 nights. And so each oracle card has a theme, a message that goes along with it, and also a meditation or a prayer in the book. And so there are these 13 24-hour cycles where you're receiving guidance, and then you're also planting your dream seeds, co-creation. So the things that you want to bring in to the new year, you make sure you actually do them during that 13-day window. So again, if you want to cook more, make sure you do it during the 13-day window. If you want a certain person in your life, you make sure you reach out to them during that time. So you're actually creating a real physical, energetic imprint as opposed to just writing down your list of New Year's resolutions. And you put it all in this journal. And then throughout the remainder of the year, at the beginning of each month, probably the end of each month, or if life is getting crazy, you pull out your journal, you take a look at what you wrote down during this 13-day window, and inevitably it gives you just jaw dropping, laugh out loud, goosebump inducing synchronicity, guidance, perspective. I sometimes say it's like having your own crystal ball, most insightful best friend, best therapist you've ever had, all wrapped up in this journal that you created hand in hand with the mystery during that 13-day window of time, the womb of winter, the beginning of the cycle, the fertile soil of the darkness. That's a real brief description of how it works. It's all the explanation of how to do it is all in the book, but that could get folks going even if they don't want to purchase the Oracle deck.
Yeah, we all journaling for one is super powerful, and it helps you get into that mental space of self-exploration and oh, why have I never been able to get a habit to stick before? And I used to do that with setting intentions to the new moon. So that was something that I did heavily for years and years and years because a lot of us, when we're starting to get on our journey, whatever it is, what if it's a healing journey, if it's a spiritual journey, if it's a health journey, like whatever type of journey, we generally know that there's a goal in mind that we want. And okay, so how do we even start moving towards that point? And a lot of us want to like just like a diet, you go on a diet and you throw everything out the window and you get really strict for it, which is the terrible way to do it. But that's just generally like diet culture is how we've always tried to do all of our habits, right?
Right.
You throw everything out overnight and you rework everything
And it
all
lasts
within
for
the
a
same.
week or three
Yes,
days.
because it's overwhelming and it's too much. You
Yeah,
can't do that. It's not sustainable. And
right.
the stuff like this is the exact same way. You have to find a way for it to be sustainable.
That's
And
where ritual comes in, right? This
yes,
rhythm, this pulse that becomes a habit and it becomes a comfortable habit, so much so that when if it's not there, then you look for it. You wonder where it went. And this practice is like that. It's something you return to year after year after year, and it just becomes a really cozy friend. And also, you were saying you like to journal in the new moon, or you used to. The winter solstice is like the new moon of the year,
yes.
right? It's the life begins in the darkness. It begins in the womb. So whether that's the new moon or the solar, cycle, the winter solstice. It's the same concept. Yeah, beginning in the
Hmm.
darkness. Yeah.
Yeah. And I found that because I didn't know what direction, what goal, because I was just like, how do I be successful? Okay, I gotta figure out how to fix all of these problems I have before I can get to that point. But okay, what are my problems? They're just life. Life is just a problem, all of it. Every bit of it. My health's a wreck. My mental health's a wreck. My
Oh, no.
financial situation's a wreck. I don't know what I'm doing with my relationships are a wreck. Like everything was a wreck. So, it can really easily get really overwhelming really quick. So I liked doing the new moon intention rituals because if you get into astrology, which again, the word ritual is one of the triggering words for people. Astrology is a triggering topic for people,
Right.
but I've always took like every time I mention astrology, it doesn't matter if you believe in it in itself. It's a really good introspective tool. That's
There
it.
you go.
It's a really good,
And prayer is a ritual, church is a ritual, right? These are just
yes, words.
habitual, yes, yeah, moments where there are certain traditions that are enacted over and over again. That's a
Hmm.
ritual, right? Again, this is comes back to linguistics and the
Hmm.
meaning of words and getting our panties in a bunch about
Yep.
what one person's definition is versus another person's, rather than leaning into what's the intention behind what they're saying,
Hmm.
what's the
Morning
energy
coffee.
behind what they're saying.
Morning
Yeah.
coffee is a ritual. Having a little
Yes,
piece of chocolate after dinner is a ritual. Like,
absolutely.
whatever, how you wash your hair is a ritual.
Yes. Yes.
Anyway, people exasperate me. Language exasperates me.
Language
Uh,
is exasperating. I'm right with you.
yeah. So, if you start connecting the moon and its cycle season, its cycle every month, uh, to astrology, astrology says that each month the new moon starts in a new zodiac.
Right.
Right. So the way I did it was that gave me a framework to how I was going to work on my life in a
Right.
way that was sustainable because it was only like a month long thing. And it really wasn't even a month long thing. You just did that. Okay, so this new moon is in Virgo per se. And I'm not saying it is. I have no idea what the moon is in actually right now, because I haven't done any of this in years. But say it's in Virgo. Well, the aspects of Virgo are related to personal health, So diet and exercise. All right, cool. So for this month, I'm going to focus on diet and exercise. So you just write out your intentions on the first month, and then more or less you forget about it. But your subconscious doesn't forget about it. Your subconscious holds on to it. So now when you go to order something off of the menu at Applebee's, your brain goes, "Hey," it pings it. It goes, "Hey, we're working on our health and wellness this month." So you might order a salad or a chicken instead of the fried chicken. I don't know. But,
Yeah.
just little things like that
Yeah.
snowball. And then you don't have to worry about trapping yourself in this long held consistency that
Hmm.
is ultimately going to fail because it's more just like loneliness is more detrimental to your health than smoking or drinking. Telling yourself you're going to meet this goal and then not meeting that goal is more detrimental than giving yourself space to not meet the goal. Like if I'm like I am going to strictly stick to this the paleo diet. I'm going to strictly stick to a paleo diet for the next 3 months because I have a wedding coming up and I need to fit in this dress. It's more detrimental to tell yourself that and set that goal and then not make it
Right.
rather than give yourself the space and the flexibility to be human. Okay?
Right.
Just be human and know that you're setting yourself up for failure if you say that I'm going to get up every single morning and go to the gym. Okay, what if you wake up one morning and your kid's puking? and you can't go to the
Right.
gym now.
Right.
What if you
Yeah.
get in a fender bender, your car throws a bolt or whatever, whatever, and now the transmission's out and now you can't get to the gym. And we will really, as humans, sit there and beat ourselves up about the fact that we didn't get to go to the gym that day and now we've broken our promise to ourselves. Because
Well, and then you
even,
just stop altogether because why bother?
yep, exactly. So instead, it's much more beneficial to allow yourself to make that slow, snail-like progress of, okay, for this amount of time, I'm just going to kind of point myself in this direction. And I hope and my intentions are to move in this direction. And I will probably get derailed. But once I get derailed, and this is what I cover in my yoga classes all the time. I'm like, we're focusing on we're keeping our awareness on our breath and our senses. What do we feel? Mentally, physically, emotionally? Do we notice the air on our skin? Do we notice the floor, the solidity of the floor beneath us? What colors, what textures are we noticing? Like, can we just get in this present moment and be as right here, right now as possible? The answer is yes for about 30 seconds. And then our
Mhm.
mind starts to wander. And then we go, and then, we're noticing our body and our stomach growls. And we're like, oh, I'm kind of hungry. Wonder what I'm gonna have. What's for lunch? Let's see. After I leave here, I have to be over here by 8, and then that leaves me enough time to start. Like so we just and then I'm like, so we're sitting here, and I'm telling us to bring our attention, our awareness to this, and then about a minute, 2 minutes into it, I go, notice where your thoughts are, bring them back, and it's the same thing in life. You point yourself in a direction of your goals and then you hope that you go in that direction for as long as you can, you're going to get derailed. But true consistency is noticing that you got derailed and gently bringing yourself back over here.
Yeah. And I think that's where having a little bit of a structure in place can help because you can leave and then there's still something to come back to, you know?
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Like the first of the year with I've never thought that it's never made sense to me that we set New Year's resolutions and then like January 1st try to start enacting them.
Right.
If you're following the seasons and how they work and how the earth works and how, it does start in the darkness. So, yes, by all means, plan out what you want to do for the rest of the year in that season. But we really get a burst of energy in spring, right?
Right.
Everything starts sprouting in
Yes.
spring. In winter, we still want to hibernate. We still want
Hmm.
to be recluse. We want to stay. It's cold. I want to be in my blankets in bed.
Right. Yep.
I don't
Yep.
want to go to the gym. It's cold out there.
Right. And when you start tuning in to the rhythm of the seasons and that pulse and those energies, you start to recognize that we do have the same impulses internally as nature is
Mm-hmm.
demonstrating externally, right? As above, so below, as without, so within.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that creative spark, that desire to dream up a new inspiration for the coming year is most accessible in the darkness. It's like lighting a match in the broad daylight. It's sort of underwhelming, right? But if you light a match in the darkness, it's really clear where the light is. So it's a much more conducive time to having that internal conversation with ourselves about what we're wanting, what our inspirations are, what our desires are for the coming cycle.
Yeah, there's less going on. There's less distractions
Yeah.
because you don't want to leave the house. It's cold.
Right. Right. And the nights are long and the days are short. Yeah.
And sitting and thinking about it, we're such a yang society.
Yes.
We don't put any importance on the yin, and that's where we're really messing up because sitting and thinking about something, that's the yin energy getting the gears going. And you
Right.
know,
This is
look,
why you have whole influencers where their entire message is just rest.
yes, absolutely.
And giving permission to just take a nap, you know?
Uh-huh. And I used to fight that so bad. I'm a napper for sure. But I hit the ground running as soon as I wake up every morning. And then about
Yeah.
2 o'clock, I just start crashing. And I noticed for the longest time that if I fought that and didn't let myself take a nap, I was grumpy, I was
Mm,
snappy, I was whiny, I probably made poor food choices.
right.
I didn't get near as much done, but if I just allow myself to stop for 20, 30 minutes is usually all I ever need. I'll go lay in my hammock for 20 minutes. I'll set a timer on my watch and then I just allow myself to breathe and exist and do nothing for that 20 minutes. And if you can just get into that state of relaxation, because most of us by that point are like, we're really stressed out and we're really tense and our shoulders are up here and everything just feels tight. And if we can, and sometimes it takes a lot of work to get all that to release and relax.
Yeah.
But once you get into that point where your body is relaxing, and because our bodies are, our nervous system's only ever in fight or flight or rest, digest, and heal. And if we're in fight or flight, we're not resting and healing.
Or tend and befriend for women.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, we have it so that fight or flight is a very masculine model of the nervous system. Women additionally have this tend and befriend response, which is actually quite often where we repair, and it's that impulse to be in relationship with others. Yeah.
Okay. Well, if I don't take a nap, I don't want a relationship with nobody. I want them all to go away. And I don't even necessarily have to fall asleep. If I can just get into that state of relaxation, I may fall asleep for 5 minutes and then I wake up and I'm good to go. And
Yeah.
not everybody's like that. My husband and my son, if they fall asleep for 5 minutes, my daughter's like that. She's like me. She can fall asleep for 5 minutes. We're ready to go.
Yeah.
My husband and my son, if they fall asleep for 5 minutes, they wake up groggy and angry and just
Wrecked for
they
the rest of the day.
pretty much at least a few
Yeah.
hours, at least 2 or 3 hours. It's terrible trying to keep my son awake because he's really good at he's figured out that sometimes he's bored with life and he if he goes to sleep, he's not bored. Like he can just kind of like opt out of life for a little bit by taking a
Hmm.
nap. He gets that
Interesting.
from me. Uh and so keeping him awake is sometimes a bit of a hassle. But, you know, our society doesn't tie rest to like importance. So our sense of value for ourselves is tied in productivity, and we make fun
Yeah.
culturally, we look down on people who need a nap, right?
Right.
Like, oh, did you not go to bed at a decent time last night? No, I did. Well, you must not be eating the right things or you shouldn't need a nap. Well, some people just do, some
Right.
people just,
The Latins started on to something with that afternoon siesta.
yes, yes. My aunt had a Spanish exchange student a few
Yeah.
years back, and I was like, tell me about your life. And
Oh, that Latin rhythm really works for me. Like the largest meal of the day in the afternoon, just a snack for dinner, and then
same.
that afternoon downtime, family gets together, rest, all the shops close. I lived in Chile for a year and when I first got there, I would go out in the afternoon every day and forget that everything was shut down, but it's really quite a nice rhythm that's much more humane.
Yeah, so much more humane. Like we're over here working 12-hour my husband does 12-hour swing shifts.
Oh gosh.
How is that even legal? He'll work days for it's 2-2-3. So he'll be on days for 2 days and then he's off for 2 days and then he's on nights for three and then
Oh my gosh.
he's off for two and then he's back to
Whew.
days for two.
That'll mess with your circadian biology.
Oh, our life is complete chaos. There
Yeah.
is no rhythm. There is no schedule. They're
Yeah.
like, are you usually okay? Are you usually available on Tuesdays? One Tuesday, every other Tuesday,
Yeah.
sometimes. Like it's
Yeah.
just terrible. So
Yeah.
I really feel like, and that's part of why I do the podcast is learning all of the different ways that the world works. And like you said earlier, take what works for you, be open to new possibilities. And we're always just, the goal is to crowd out what's not working for you with more things that are working for you because life is a nightmare and whatever helps you cope the happiest, most peaceful way possible is the correct way.
Right. Yeah. Well said.
All right. Well, we can wrap this up if you'd like.
Uh, yeah, I can't. I mean, unless you have any other questions or curiosities, I don't have anything really that's coming up for me.
Okay, cool. Well, I unfortunately can talk for unlimited amounts of time, but
Fortunately or unfortunately, you're in the right position as a podcast host.
yeah, yeah. It doesn't work so well for me in day-to-day real life
Right.
situations, but we're very thankful for what we get to do.
Nice.
All right. So tell people where to find you, and I will absolutely post it down below in the descriptions.
Yeah, so I'm easy to find. I just my website is my name, Lara, Lara. Do not sneak a U in there. Even when I spell it out, people often sneak the U in. LARAJ, my middle initial day, DAY. So larajday.com. It's also my handle on Instagram and Facebook. I am on TikTok, though I'm not super active there. But that's basically how to find me. I do offer private sessions in neurogenic qigong, which we did not talk about that, but that's a combination of tension and trauma releasing neurogenic tremor work and then Chinese energy medicine or medical qigong. So I do that work privately with clients. I also teach workshops, and then my book is available all over the place. But the best place to get it would be through my publishers, and their website is beyondword.com. And those are the best ways to find me. I also offer seasonal courses that are a combination of all this wonderful seasonal information that you and I have been talking about, and then also they are a dive into qigong as well, so qigong practice, and those are also on my website. So those are all of my offerings.
Awesome. Cool. So if you ever have the desire to come on again and do another episode, let me know. It I like having people come back on. We're here to build relationships, right? And the community, and you become more of a recognized figure for the audience if you come back again and people are like, "Oh, I remember this lady. That was fun. That was a fun
Yeah.
episode."
Well, we could do a whole episode on a dive into neurogenic qigong and that work.
Yeah, absolutely we can. For sure. All right. Well,
All
we can do
right.
that. We can plan on it because I'm very interested.
Nice.
It's similar to Tai Chi, maybe?
Yeah, so Tai Chi is like a form of Qigong under the greater umbrella of Qigong. So Qi just means universal life force energy, and
Mm-hmm.
Gong makes the good work or practice of. So the good work or practice of cultivating life force energy. And then Tai Chi is a form of Qigong that is a martial art in nature. Yeah.
Yeah. I did Tai Chi for almost a year. Uh, that I was pregnant with my daughter, or I became pregnant with my daughter halfway through that year, and I was going to just continue on as long as I could, but it was not the relaxing type of in the park Tai Chi that people
Mm,
think of that
right.
retirees do.
No. Yeah.
It was very much a hardcore sweating martial arts. And
Yeah.
at about 7 months pregnant, I started having really bad Braxton Hicks where I couldn't even stand up straight most of the time. So I had to quit.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Yeah. But yes, we could absolutely go down that rabbit hole for a while, I think.
Yeah.
All right.
That sounds great.